Peace and love to the family. You ready? Let's go.
And I will say also too, that if you are scared of what I'm saying, feel free to go back to the church. Please do. See what I'm saying? Go back to the church and call me the devil, which I am. And you have the right to believe that. That's not the point here. The point is not to try to get you to join something. If this stuff shocks you and this stuff is literally wears on you that you say, I can't take it, then go back to the church. And
Peace and love, peace and love, peace and love to the family. Welcome to the Darius Corbin Mystery School, the home of the esoteric and metaphysical knowledge. Y'all just heard from one of the greats. We just heard one of the greats, Brother Bobby Hemmett. Major respect to that brother. He's an inspiration. He's been for over a decade, not just to myself, but many of you that are watching. This presentation tonight will be called The Christian Devil and the Origins of the Black Race. This is not a race presentation. This is a real presentation. There's an old saying, if you want to hide something from black people, put it in a book. The Darius Corbin Mystery School is all about the truth and the wisdom to enlighten the souls on this planet. So family, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, tell a friend to tune in to the Darius Corbin Mystery School, because this is going to be a really real and revealing presentation to not just black people, not just to the black race, but to the yellow race, to the white race, to the brown race. This work that I'm about to present to you soon, is from 1911. Let me rewind that back one more time. This presentation that I'm about to give to you today is from 1911. We are in the year 2023. And it seems like spiritually we have came to a decline for many decades now, many centuries now. But don't worry, we are now getting that back in the age of Aquarius. The more you do your own research on who you are, the more you do your research on history, and not history, but history, you will see that not just one race, but race as a humankind has evolved, devolved, evolved. It is time for us to sit back and finally fully evolve into the true spiritual beings that we are. This presentation that I'm going to present to you people, I promise you, most of you have never even heard of, but you need. Brother Bobby Hemmett, whenever he would go into his presentation and his lectures and his facts, there's a few people that he would always bring up. Elders. C. Freemanell, major respect, was one of them. H.P. Belansky was one of them. Rudolf Steiner was another one. And the work that I'm going to be presenting to you today is by the work of another person, a poet, an Egyptologist, Gerald Massey. You need to do research and study the work of these people, because this is not about race. This is about realism. I'm not going to tarry you on too long, because by the end of this video, you will be knowing a lot more about yourself, and you will start to do the work. I don't play around the Darius Corbin Mystery School. This is the age of Aquarius. It's time for you to know who you are. And to my church people, I know you understand that now we're in the age of Aquarius, the age of knowing. So there are some things that you thought you may have knew that the Bible has given you all the way around, but there isn't. It goes a lot deeper and a lot darker. And in the dark is where you will find the light. Now, before I go into the presentation, I'm going to start off the same way I did with the last one and give you an introduction on who Gerald Massey is. Understand the man before you get to the work. Now, are you ready? Get a little bit comfortable. I got time today, folks. Listen up. Gerald Massey, though a poet, Shakespearean scholar, and renowned Egyptologist, is best remembered by his unswerving convictions. His research led him to the conclusion that in Africa alone could be found the origins of myths, mysteries, symbols, languages, and religions. Egypt was the mouthpiece. He did not hesitate to undertake to prove that all Christendom were the dupes of delusion. His zeal caused him to challenge the scientists, the theologians, the philologists, and the anthropologists, and sociologists. However, he did not rest his case there. He was too much the honest scholar for that. Therefore, he presented to his peers the abundant evidence resulting from his immense amount of research, which has been sifted through the most reliable authorities. In the present lectures, Gerald Massey renewed his contention that the gnosis, which is another word for knowledge, of Christianity was primarily derived from Egypt on various lines of descent: Hebrew, Persian, Greek, and Alexandrian, Exedian, and Nazarene. These converged in Rome, where the history was manufactured from identifiable matter recorded in the ancient book of wisdom. It was during this period that he delivered the lecture on Gnostic and historic Christianity. He clearly depicts the origin of Christianity and makes it unequivocal that it was not derived from Buddhism. Jesus spoke repeatedly about the Father. Massey said, and I quote, "The Buddha is the veiled God unveiled, the unmanifested made manifest, but not by the line of descent from father to son. Buddha was begotten by his own becoming before the time of divine parenting." Long before man uttered a verbal prayer, he expressed himself by actions or gesture language. Massey discussed this at length in Man in Search of His Soul during 50,000 Years and How He Found It. Present-day psychologists recognize gesture languages as an indication of man's true unexpressed attitudes, for unconsciously he assumes gestures revealing his thinking. The old cliche, and I quote, "actions speak louder than words," end quote, has come full circle and vindicated Massey. Massey has but one desire. He wanted to gain all the knowledge the past could afford him, and then to supplement it with all that is known in the present. He maintained it was impossible to understand the present without a profound knowledge of the past, unless man comprehended the laws of evolution and past development, and of present survival. It was impossible to form an opinion that would be of value to anyone. With patience and determination, he carried this out in all his writings. He had little patience with those who talked of the great occult secrets. He was convinced the so-called ancient mysteries were manufactured by pseudo-esoterists and occultists. The only interest Massey took, or Massey, excuse me, let me put some respect on his name. The only interest that Massey took in such matters was to determine how they originated, to verify their supposed phenomena, and to ferret out their meaning. He insisted the need for mystery vanished with the coming of the printing press and public experimental research. It became a passion with him to publish the facts as he saw them, and then to distribute the knowledge widely. In The Seven Souls of Man, he said, and I quote, "The modern manufacture of ancient mysteries is a great imposition and sure to be found out. The mysteries called Christian, I look upon them as the greatest imposition of all." Quote, end quote. His own meditation on facts of both abnormal or extraordinary nature, which continued and were verified over the years, proved to him that mind existed and operated invisibly. He did not trouble about the, and I quote, "the other world," end quote, at all, for it was in this world that people needed assistance. Life to him was not worth living if something were not done to further its work. And I quote, "It is only in helping others that we can truly help ourselves," end quote. Mr. Massey, in the lecture "The Devil of Darkness in the Light of Evolution," which we're about to read, "The Devil of Darkness in the Light of Evolution," to Gerald Massey, it was an unforgivable pretense for the clergy to continue to preach that man was a fallen creature. He continually pointed out that man could not be saved through prayerful intercession. Every advance made by science for humanity had been carried out through research and perseverance, not by praying to a jealous God. Massey proclaimed, and I quote, "It is a sad farce for you to pray for God to work a miracle when you are doing all you can to prevent it." Quote, end quote. Speaking of creation, he saw it as a beginning with the first means of measuring and recording a cycle of time. In Genesis, the first day was measured by the morning and the evening. To the present day, time continues to be measured by the identical method. Through years of observation, Massey recorded the outcome of such statements as, I quote, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth," end quote. He concluded that the meek did not inherit the earth and were not about to. Teachers have been woefully mistaken and unobserving. The death of Jesus could not save man from himself. Massey was adamant in pointing out that man was what he was as the result of what he had done. There was no dodging the law of cause and effect. One of Massey's greatest contributions in his lecture on the coming religion, it is potent with his sincerity. He puts his own belief into every word. To him, each person must do his own thinking and have absolute freedom of expression. He stressed that the new religion must have, and I quote, "sincerity of life in place of pretended belief. A religion of science in place of superstition," end quote. This religion will proclaim man's ascent rather than his fall. It will be a religion of fact in the present, not a mere faith for the future. The temple will be what it was intended to be, the human form rather than an edifice of brick and stone. It will be a religion of accomplishment rather than of worship. And in the place of the many creeds, it will be a religion of life. Above all, it would be a joyous religion. To realize such a religion, a man must be honest and courageous, as was Gerald Massey himself. His final plea in the coming religion was to urge man to bear in mind that the origin of evil in the moral domain was derived from ignorance. It was Hermes who said, and I quote, "The wickedness of a soul is its ignorance," quote, end quote. To this, Gerald Massey fittingly added that after gaining the consciousness to recognize the right, then it is man's permissiveness that allows evil actions to take place. Now, for those who watch this whole time, you can mark this point right here as the point where the lecture starts. Hit the subscribe button, tell a friend to tune in to the Darius Corbin Mystery School. If you know any pastors, preachers, reverends, theologians in general, give them a call. Tell them to tune in to this video and to my channel, the Mystery School, the Darius Corbin Mystery School. Once again, this is called The Christian Devil and the Origins of Black People, as told as Gerald Massey in his 1911 work. This is not a race presentation. This is a real presentation. Now, from this 15-minute mark, I want y'all to listen up really, really good. Because it's going to get good in the beginning, have you scratching your head in the middle, and have you jumping in front of the couch or open ears wherever you are in the third. Let's start with Gerald Massey's work. The Devil of Darkness in the Light of Evolution. Are you ready? The presentation starts now. There are two things which I have come to look upon as constituting the unpardonable sin of the father and the mother against the helpless innocence of infancy. The one is in allowing their little children to run the risk of blood poisoning, such as was suffered by a child of mine from the filthy fraud of vaccination. This year is 1911, by the way. The other is in permitting the mind and soul of their children to be inoculated with the still more fatal virus of the old, false, orthodox dogmas and delusions by allowing them to believe that the fables of the ancient mythology are the sacred and solely true, and I quote, word of God, end quote. If they are found in the Hebrew scriptures, the one book of the religious ignorant. Are y'all all right? Notice Gerald Massey said in 1911, there are two things which I have come to look upon as constituting the unpardonable, the unexcusable sin of the father and mother against the helpless innocence of infancy. The one is in allowing their little children to run the risk of blood poisoning, such as was once suffered by a child of mine from the filthy fraud of vaccination. The other is in permitting the mind and soul of their children to be inoculated with the still more fatal virus of the old, false, orthodox dogmas and delusions by allowing them to believe that the fables of ancient mythology are the sacred and solely true word of God, if they are found in the Hebrew scriptures, the one book of the religiously ignorant. Generation after generation, we learn, unlearn, and relearn the same lying, legendary lore, and it takes the latter half of all one's lifetime to throw off the mass of corrupting error instilled into us during the earlier half. Even when we do break out and slog it off in a mental eruption and have to find ourselves in the utter rebellion against things as they are, unfortunately, the mass of people never do get rid of this infection, nor of the desires to give their disease to others. He went hard on religion, didn't he? But you're going to see why. The fact of the matter is, the Christian dogmas and doctrines began as such, with being unintelligible and inexplicable. They were to remain as mysteries, and any true explanation of them is deaf to their false pretensions. It is my method to explode by explaining them. Take the doctrine of the Trinity, for example. Can any theologian throughout all Christendom today give us any intelligible account of its origin and primary meaning? Not one. For that we must go to mythology, which was earlier than our theology, and which alone enables us to explain its primitive mysteries. The natural genesis of the Trinity was found and is to be refound in lunar phenomena. Lunar, L-U-N-A-R, phenomenon. The moon in mythology and chronology was a time measurer of a threefold nature. At 15 days of age or full moon, it was the mother moon, hence Ishtar, I-S-H-T-A-R, in Akkad. Hence, Ishtar in Akkad is designated goddess. The lessening waning moon was her little one, the child of the moon who became the viral one, the adult as the horn new moon, the reproducer who was fabled to beget himself on the mother moon, and thus became his own father as a natural mode of describing natural phenomena. Do you guys realize what we just did? Your theologians maybe never got a chance to give you the true origins of the Holy Spirit. But like Gerald Massey said, everything in that religion was borrowed by mythology. They just broke it down where the Holy Trinity came from. Let me read that again. Thank you for bearing with me. The fact of the matter is that the Christian dogmas and doctrines began as such with beginning unintelligible and unexplicable. They were to remain as mysteries, and any explanation of them is deaf to their false pretensions. It is my method to explode by explaining them. Take the doctrine of the Trinity, for example. Can any theologian throughout all Christendom today give us any intelligible account of its origin and primary meaning? Not one. For that we must go to mythology, which was earlier than our theology, and which alone enables us to explain its primitive mysteries. The natural genesis of the Trinity was found and is to be refound in lunar phenomena. The moon in mythology and chronology was a time measurer of a threefold nature. At 15 days of age or full moon, it was the mother moon. Hence, Ishtar in Akkad is designated goddess. The lessening waning moon was her little one, the child of the moon, who became the viral one, Virile, the adult as the horn new moon, the reproducer who was fabled to beget himself on the mother moon, and thus became his own father as a natural mode of describing phenomena. These three are internally one and external nature, a trinity always manifesting monthly, and the triple aspect was humanely or naturally expressed by means of the mother, child, and reproducing male, which three are also one in the total human being. In the Christian iconography, you will sometimes see the Virgin Mary enthroned in the new moon with the child in her arms, and these two with the horn or phallic moon constitute the Christian Trinity in unity. Such was the primitive mode of thinking in things, afterwards continued in a mystical or doctrine phase. Such I affirm to be the origin of the Trinity in mythology, which preceded religion. And when this is applied abstractly to the nature of deity or to the mind in nature by means of metaphysics, the result is an imposition, and he or she who practices imposition, consciously or not, is an impostor. No such thing can be known as a truant or triangular God, but we are able to show how such types originated when our words are examined. We shall frequently find that our metaphysics has been abstracted or falsely filched from primitive physics, as was the Trinity by Plato, which was continued by the Christian fathers, who tell us that but for Plato, they would never have understood the doctrine of the Trinity. As with the Trinity, so it is with the origin of the theological devil. The same way the Christian told you that if it wasn't for Plato, they wouldn't know nothing, the same way about the theological devil. Listen up. The crucial question of the savage man, Friday, was too fundamental for the theologians of Robinson Crusoe. Friday asked, but if God much strong, much mighty as the devil, why God no kill the devil, and so make him no more wicked? Quote, end quote. Crusoe, imitating other theologians, not knowing what to say, and I quote, pretended not to hear him. I am told this passage has been omitted from certain recent editions. To give an answer to that question, we shall have to go round to work. It would never do to begin a lecture on this subject like the well-known chapter headed Snakes in Iceland, which consisted of the statement, there are no snakes in Iceland, quote, end quote. If I did, my lecture might be summed up in the words, there is no devil, but every believed superstition and mental type has its natural genesis, once the devil included. The result of 14-year research in the records of the past is a personal conviction that the human mind has long suffered an eclipse and been darkened and dwarfed in the shadows of ideas, the real meaning of which has been lost to the moderns. Myth and allegories adopted in ignorance and reissued as real truths, divinely vouchsafed it to mankind for the first and only time when found in the Hebrew writings. Are y'all alright there? Because I will slow this down to make it make sense, because I know it's making it make sense, but I want to make sure that you understand me making it make sense. The result of 14-year research in the records of the past is a personal conviction that the human mind has long suffered an eclipse and been darkened and dwarfed in the shadow of ideas, the real meaning of which has been lost to the moderns. Myth and allegories whose significance was once unfolded to the initiates in the ancient mysteries have been adopted in ignorance and reissued as real truths divinely vouchsafed it to mankind for the first and only time when found in the Hebrew writings. Are y'all with me before we get deeper and darker to get to the light? I'm going to read that one more time so you can start understanding within your subconscious. The result of 14-year research in the records of the past is a personal conviction that the human mind has long suffered an eclipse and been darkened and dwarfed in the shadow of ideas, the real meaning of which has been lost to the moderns. Myth and allegories whose significance was once unfolded to the initiates in the ancient mysteries have been adopted in ignorance and reissued as real truths divinely vouchsafed to mankind for the first and only time when found in Hebrew writings. The earlier religions had their myths interpreted by means of the oral and unwritten wisdom. We have ours misinterpreted, and a great deal of what has been imposed upon us as God's direct, true, and sole revelation to the man is a mass of inverted myths, under the shadow of which men have been cowering as timorously as birds in the stubble, when a kite in the shape of a hawk is held hovering overhead to keep them down, as I have seen it practiced in England. The parables and types of the primeval thinkers have been elevated to the spear, as the hawk or serpent, the bull or the crab, that give names to certain groups of stars, as we are precisely in the same relationship to these religion parables and allegories as we should be to the astronomical facts. If we thought the serpent and bull, lion and seagoat and ram were real animals up in heaven instead of constellations with symbolic names, and let me read that as a whole. The parables and types of the primeval thinkers have been elevated to the spear, as the hawk or serpent, the bull or the crab, that give names to certain groups of stars, and we are precisely in the same relationship to these religion parables and allegories as we should be to astronomical facts. If we thought the serpent and bull, lion, seagoat, and ram were real animals up in heaven instead of constellation with symbolic names. The Jews picked up various tradition of other races. The Jews picked up various tradition of other races. Moses, they tell us, was an initiate in all their learning of the Egyptians. And these myths have been so handled as to efface their primitive feathers altogether. They have been so sweated down by later theologies to make capital get gold dust, as it were, out of them, that they can only be recognized by comparison with their earlier copies, yet extant among other nations from which the Jews derived their version. Fossil remains found in the lowermost strata of human thought have been preserved as divine patterns for the ignorant and superstition of later ages. The simple realities of the earliest times were expressed by signs and symbols, and these have been taken and applied to later thought and converted into theological problems and metaphysical mysteries, for which our theologians have no basis whatever and can only wrangle over in layer. They cannot touch solid earth with one foot when they want to kick opponents with the other. And when they try to bite you very viciously, they find that they have only been furnished with a set of teeth that are false. Gerald Massey was a poet too, so he was good with the words. The only possible way of exposing the false pretensions of theological dogma is by explaining them from the root and showing what they meant as mythos. The orthodox teaching which is found on, I quote, the fall of man is shattered, even as a pane of glass is fractured at a blow when once we can apply the doctrine of development. The Hebrew devil or Satan means the opponent or adversary, and the first great natural adversary recognized by the primitive man was darkness. Simply darkness. The constant and eternal enemy of the light, that is, the power of darkness, was literal before it became metaphorical, moral, or spiritual. Races all over the world at 31 minutes. Are you listening up? Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, tell a friend to tune in. Because yet again, it's about to get real. Listen up. The Hebrew devil, or Satan, means the opponent or adversary. And the first great natural adversary recognized by primitive man was darkness. Simply darkness. The constant and eternal enemy of the light, that is, the power of darkness, was literal before it became metaphorical, moral, or spiritual. Hence, darkness itself was the earliest devil or adversary, the obstructor and deluder of man, the eternal enemy of the sun, S-U-N. We speak of the, and I quote, jaws of darkness, and darkness was the vast, huge swallower of the light, night after night. To my Christian family, my Islamic family, my religious family, are you getting this? Some of you already know this, but this is the Devil's Corporate Mystery School. We are learning today. For those who go to church, and you thinking the devil is just pitchfork, red person coming in your dreams like Freddy, listen to where the origins of the Christian devil originate from. It's getting real, isn't it? Do your research. The Hebrew devil, or Satan, means the opponent or adversary. And the first great natural adversary recognized by primitive man was darkness. Close your eyes. It was darkness. Simply darkness. The constant and eternal enemy of the light, that is. The power of darkness was literal before it became metaphorical, moral, or spiritual. Hence, darkness itself was the earliest devil or adversary, the obstructor and deluder of man, the eternal enemy of the sun. We speak of the jaws of darkness, and darkness was the vast, huge swallower of the light, night after night. We know this was identified as the primary power because the primitive or early man reckoned time by nights and the years by eclipses. This mode of reckoning was first and universal. So many darks preceded so many days. The dark power is primarily in oldest, listen up, the dark power is primarily in all the oldest traditions and cults of the human race. Hence, sacrifice was first offered to the power of darkness. The four words of universal mythology are, and I quote, there was darkness, end quote. All was dark at first within the mind, and the all was the darkness that created dread without. The influence of night, the eclipse, and the black thundercloud being first felt, the primitive man visibly emerges from the shadow of darkness as deeply impressed and indelibly died in mind and was his body with its natural blackness. You know, I heard recently that they say Kevin Hart got, and much respect to your brother Kevin Hart, much respect to Egypt. Like I told you, I've been there in 2019, amazing place. I don't know how true this is, but they say Kevin Hart recently got in trouble for saying that Egyptians were black. I think we're going to answer that as well tonight as well. So I'm going to read that again. I hope you all listening up. Subscribe, share, TikTok, whatever y'all got on Instagram. Make sure the people hear this. This mode of reckoning was first and universal. So many darks preceded so many days. The dark power is primarily in all the oldest tradition and cults of the human race. Hence, sacrifice was first offered to the powers of darkness. The four words of universal mythology are, there was darkness. All was dark at first within the mind, and the all was the darkness that created dread without. The all was darkness that created dread without. The influence of night, the eclipse, and the black thundercloud being first felt, the primitive man visibly emerges from the shadow of darkness as deeply impressed and indelibly died in mind as was his body with its natural blackness. The black man without was negroid within. Once again, this is Gerald Massey writing this in 1911, the year 1911. He was an Egyptologist and put the work in to bring the work to the people with no racist and no bias. 2023, most of us are just hearing this. You see why Bobby Hemmett rock with this guy and people like Rudolph Steiner. I'm going to read that yet again. I'm going to keep moving on. The dark power is primarily in all the oldest traditions and the cults of the human race. Hence, sacrifice was first offered to the powers of darkness. The four words of universal mythology are, there was darkness, quote, end quote. All was dark at first within the mind, and the all was the darkness that created dread without. The affluence of night, the eclipse, and the black thundercloud being first felt, the primitive man visibly emerges from the shadow of darkness as deeply impressed and indelibly died in the mind as was his body with its natural blackness. The black man without was negroid within. As his reflection remains in the mirror of mythology. The darkness then, and natural phenomenon was the original devil that put out the light by swallowing it insensibly, as the subtle enemy, the obstructor, deluder, and general adversary of man. I'm not even 30 minutes, I am 30 minutes in. I'm not even 40 minutes in. And to my people who listen to truth and wisdom and can do their research, we have already solved for the people of America, United States, the world, what are the origins of the devil. The devil was originally the black, the darkness, the black that came from the darkness. So when you look at all the bias and racism that comes the way of the black and the brown, you now have the origins of why these races have been treated so badly, unfairly, because these races are the origins of not just darkness or coming from darkness, but they are the first ones to hit this planet, the first ones to rule or to be governed or to govern this planet. Yeah, I'm going to read it again. The black man without was Negroid within, as his reflection remains in the mirror of mythology. The darkness then and natural phenomenon was the original devil that put out the light by swallowing it insensibly, and the subtle enemy, the obstructor, deluder, and general adversary of man. The first form of the devil was female. Oh, we don't we don't play around on the Darius Corbin channel. We don't play around in the Darius Corbin Mystery School. You're going to get this work today. Sisters, especially my ones in Christianity and other religions, they don't give you the respect spiritually that you deserve. It is what it is. I gave you many quotes from Deuteronomy alone and from the original Hebrew Bible that said a woman should be confined into her room until cleansed of her issue, talking about your menstrual cycle. But what if you knew, my sisters, how powerful your menstrual cycle was and that blood was? That's a whole nother topic for a whole nother video. So let's read that again. The first form of the devil was female, called the dragon of darkness, who was Tiamat. Some of us heard about Tiamat, right? Tiamat in Akkad, and Typhoon in Egypt. You getting that work today? I don't even know where I'm going to stop on this presentation, but no time soon, don't worry. The first form of the devil was female. I want y'all to sit back and think about the history of the woman. How the women are still fighting for her rights. How women are still fighting to be women when they shouldn't have to. Think about the ones who gave us religion. Think if they knew this and they had certain technologies that we didn't have but didn't want to use because we knew the power and the end results of using that technology. But if they had the means and their own external intelligence to overpower us. Because remember, we fell from what the Bible said into ignorance. And the children took over. The inmates took over the prison yard. That's what happened. So if they had this knowledge that the first origins, the black man come from the mother, which is darkness, the dragon Tiamat, and the female, the first form came from this dragon, we got to take these two out, is what the ancient European Caucasoid Cro-Magnon man was thinking. This is not a race presentation. This is a real presentation. Subscribe, hit the like button, leave comments. We are family here. All of humankind. But in order for us to raise our vibration and go to the next level, the next spiritual realm, the truth must be told. And we must come together as a people, a unified consciousness. This ain't a race presentation. This is a real presentation. Let's read that again. The first form of the devil was female, called the dragon of darkness, who was Tiamat in Akkad, that's Akkad, and Typhoon, Typhon, in Egypt. Typhoon gave birth to Sut. And you heard Bobby Hemmett say this. Watch what we do here. Sut. Soot, which is black, S-O-O-T, black. Satan. Soot, S-U-T, soot, S-O-O-T, Satan. You see what happened? I'm going to keep putting in your head. The first form of the devil was female, called the dragon of darkness, who was Tiamat in Akkad, and Typhoon in Egypt. Typhoon gave birth to Set, who became the Egyptian devil. Let me read that again. Typhoon gave birth to Sut, S-U-T, who became the Egyptian devil, our Satan, and who was represented by the black jackal, the voice of darkness. And Sut, the black one, gives us the name of Soot, S-O-O-T, the black thing. Angro-Manius, A-N-G-R-O hyphen M-A-I-N-Y-U-S. You should already have a pen and pad when you tune into my channel before you even click the play button. Because I want you to Google Angro-Manius. And these little fantasy cards and anime, they be having y'all truth. And you think these kids are nerds and geeks, and when they be doing this anime and playing these like fantasy cards, the truth be right in them joints. Trust me. But type in A-N-G-R-O hyphen M-A-I-N-Y-U-S and see what you get. You don't get nothing that's black like us or, primal darkness. It's more beastly. Just Google it. Once again, the voice of darkness, and Sut, S-U-T, the black one, gives us the name of Soot, S-O-O-T, the black thing. Angro-Manius, the Persian devil, was the black one of two powers, of light and darkness. Let's read that again. The Persian devil was the black one of the two powers of light and darkness. Primitive man, ancient man, primitive man, our ancestors' man. Primitive man, however, did not imagine or personify a devil behind visible phenomena that caused the darkness. Darkness itself was the devil, and even as late as the Parsi Buddhist, which means the aboriginal creation, external darkness is the devil. The seven devils or seven heads of the old dragon in the Akkadian myths of creation are born in the mountains of sunset, which shows the same natural genesis and physical phenomena. They had their birthplace where the sun went down. At the same place in the west, the Egyptians stationed the great crocodile that swallowed down the lights, sun, moon, and stars, as they set each night in its wide open jaws of darkness. Hence, the crocodile was an ideograph of the swallowing darkness and of earth, of the waters below, called the abyss. And the tail of the crocodile remained in the Egyptian hieroglyphics as the sign of Kam, K-A-M, that is, of blackness or darkness. Kam, K-A-M, means blackness or darkness. I got a feeling we're going to see a lot more Kams being born now. The crocodile was the typical dragon of the waters below, the old typhoon as the serpent was of the waters, or overwhelming darkness above. Hor Apollo, H-O-R hyphen Apollo, tells us that the Egyptians represent the mouth by a serpent because the serpent is all mouth. This was another figure of the swallower as the Ankh, and that's Ankhek, A-K-H-E-K-H, and the Apap serpent, A-K-H-E-K-H, signifies darkness, and Apap, A-P-A-P, A-P-A-P, means that which rises up vast and gigantic and short. The monster, the typical Apap, being based on the great African rock snake. Here then is the reason why the mythical dragon and the old serpent are identical or interchangeable in mythology, each being a representation or representative of the devil of darkness and of Satan, that old serpent who imagined or who imaged the evil which was first preserved in physical phenomenon. Out of darkness leaped the lighting bolt, and in the deep waters lurked another subtle foe of life, and thus the jaws, the fang, and the sting of death were assigned to the devil of darkness, who gradually assumed the character of man's mortal enemy that brought death into the world. The course of this development can be traced from beginning in physical darkness. This course of this development can be traced from the beginning in physical darkness to the culmination in a psychotheistic phase, for everything yields to an application of the evolutionary method, and you may depend upon it that evolution has come into the world to stay, and evolution and the Hebrew Genesis cannot coexist in the same mental world. Let me read that again. The course of this development can be traced from the beginning in physical darkness to the culmination in a psychotheistic phase, for everything yields to an application of the evolutionary method. And you may depend upon it that evolution has come into the world to stay, and evolution and the Hebrew Genesis cannot coexist in the same mental world. How y'all doing out there? I know. This is the Darius Corey Mystery School once again. The divine messenger of Christ. We're in the age of Aquarius. They told you for many, many centuries that we were going to come at this time. We are here now. Not just me, but many more like me, and many more to come. Let's go. The earliest mode of representing the eternal alternations of external phenomena called night and day, or darkness and light, the good and bad, is to be found in the universal myth of two brothers, who are born twins, very imperfect versions of which may be found in the legends of Cain and Abel, and of Esau and Jacob, that's Esau. In this myth, the dark and day are born twins. Are you getting this? You are hearing the mythology, the true mythology that was made true religion, and in the minds of the people, true facts, which they weren't. They were mythologies. So let's listen up again. The earliest mode of representing the internal alternation of external phenomena called night and day, or darkness and light, the good and bad, is to be found in the universal myth of the two brothers, who are born twins, very imperfect versions of which may be found in the legends of Cain and Abel and Esau and Jacob. In this myth, the dark and day are born twins of the Great Mother. Here we go again, especially to my Christian and my other religion families. You talk about the Holy Trinity, the Father and the Son. But for the ancient ones in that Orthodox religion, you never wanted to give the Great Mother her just dues and her power. But now, in this age, oh, you were. And the mother's energy is coming back stronger and stronger into her children. Ma is here. In this myth, the dark and day are born twins of the Great Mother. And these brothers are portrayed as always being at enmity with each other and in conflict before their birth, as are the darkness and the light when struggling at dawn. They fight one another in the effort of each to get born first. This becomes the well-known struggle of the birthright, which is universal in mythology. Far more perfect versions of the same mythos are extant among the blacks of Australia, the Red Indians of America, the Bushmen and Hottentots of Africa. We just connected you if you already wasn't connected to your ancestors, no matter who you are, especially the black and browns. Do you want me to say that again? Well, I'm going to do it anyway. In this myth, the dark and day are born twins of the Great Mother, and these brothers are portrayed as always being at enmity with each other and in conflict before their birth, as are the darkness and the light when struggling at dawn. They fight one another in the effort of each to get born first. This becomes the well-known struggle of the birthright, which is universal in mythology. Far more perfect versions of the same mythos are extant among the blacks of Australia, the Red Indians of America, the Bushmen and Hottentots of Africa, more perfect because simpler, nearer to nature, and less moralized. It is the myth of Sut Horus in Egypt. Sut Horus, Sut-Horus, is the dual manifester of dark and light, who is depicted with the double head of the black vulture of night and the golden hawk of light upon one body. The dark one was born first. The dark one was born first because darkness was first cognized. The dark one was born first because darkness was first cognized. But they both continue to struggle for supremacy after birth, as they has done before it, because they dramatize the ceaseless and endless alternation of night and day, of dark and light. I'm going to stop there because occultism, masonry, whatever initiation or whether self-knowledge that you have, you understand that as above, so below, both making the one. If it's as above, so below, and we're talking about that conflict, that constant conflict of light versus dark, it is even in flesh, is it not? It is the myth of Sut and Horus in Egypt. Sut Horus is the dual manifester of dark and light, who is depicted with the double head of the black vulture of night and the golden hawk of light upon one body. The dark one was born first because darkness was first cognized, but they both continued to struggle for supremacy after birth, as they had done before it, because they dramatized the ceaseless and endless alternation of night and day, of dark and light, seen in the heavens at eve and dawn, in the orb of the moon and the lengthening of darkness, or of light in autumn and in spring. Here again, the dark power is the devil, the bad dev, D-E-V, and the light is the good power, the bright dev, D-E-V. The same conflict based upon the alternation of light and darkness is portrayed as the struggle of St. George, our solar hero, who conquers the dragon just as Horus overthrows the Apap dragon upon the monuments of Egypt. And when the devil's knell, Knell, is rung annually at Horbury in Yorkshire, England, that is, in celebration of the death of the dragon of darkness. England celebrating the death of the dragon of darkness, which we now know the first ones, the black ones, originated from. So in Yorkshire, England, they celebrate, without a lot of us knowing, because I damn sure didn't know till recently, that they are celebrating the death of the dark dragon, which is our mother, the original mother, the great mother. I hope y'all are getting this. You can rewind back any time. I'm going to read it again. The same conflict based upon the alternation of light and darkness is portrayed as the struggle of St. George, our solar hero, who conquers the dragon just as Horus overthrows the Apap dragon upon the monuments of Egypt. And when the devil's Knell is rung annually at Horbury in Yorkshire, England, that's Horbury, in Yorkshire, England, that is in celebration of the death of the dragon of darkness. And the same custom is also continued in ringing out the old year on the last night in December. When in North-South Wales, I picked up a tradition, Massey says, of the blacks. When in New South Wales, I picked up a tradition of the blacks. This is Gerald Massey talking now. When in New South Wales, I picked up a tradition of the blacks. The devil called Mullion, that's Mullion, lived in a very tall tree at Gira, that's Girra, on the Barwon River, and used to eat blackfellows. They tried to burn down that vast tree in which the devil of darkness dwelt, but the fires were always put out by invisible spirits. Then they got a red mouse, put a lighted straw in his mouth, and started him up the tree. The loose bark caught fire, the tree blazed for weeks, the devil was burned out, and never came back again. The red mouse is also a type of Horus in Egypt. Naturally then, the devil of darkness was the first divinity because the dark power is primal. When it came to worshiping, or rather to propitiating by offering the fruits of fear. It was the dark power that predominated because they struck terror and elicted fear. Primos and it says primos and orbo des ficituma. Sometimes these twins of darkness and light are called the ugly and beautiful brothers. And here the persistence of the mythical types may be noticed, for these two are not only continued as the Sut Horus or double Horus of Egypt, but they are also likewise extant in that museum of mythical types, the catacombs of Rome, as the twin Christ, one of which is portrayed as the beautiful youth, the other is the little old and ugly Christ, just as it was in the pre-Christian times, from which these figures were a Gnostic survival. And to my religious people watching right now, my theologians, my preachers, my pastors, if you do not know, or better yet, if you do not teach the knowledge of the Gnostics, which were the original Christians who got murdered, burnt, and then some by the Romans, if you don't teach your congregation about the Gnostics, then you cannot call yourself a true preacher or true messenger of Christ or God, because they had the true knowledge of who Christ was and was killed, murdered, and tortured for it. And I'm going to end here soon. We're on an hour now. But let me know what you think in the comments. This is the Darius Corbin Mystery School yet again. I am the divine messenger of Christ. Remember, Christ is within you. Know your power to get what you want in life. All right, let's finish up. Next, mind becomes an element in the manifestation of phenomena. And in the American myths, the born twins are called the bad mind and the good mind. In this phase, the twin brothers are not only mental, they are also moralized on their way to becoming the dual divinity or modern god and devil. In the Avesta, Avesta, and other Persian scriptures, for example, the twin brothers can be traced from natural genesis and phenomenon as light and darkness, to their becoming personified as divinity and devil. In Ahura Mazda, the god of mental light, and you need to write this name down too, because before we got religion, God, and the devil, the Persians, who their religion and beliefs were earlier than Christianity, they had Ahura Mazda, Ahura-Mazda. Do your research on that entity. The god of mental light, and Angro-Magnuson, the devil of mental darkness. I spelled that name earlier, but if you want me to spell it again, Angro-Mainyus. Now here we go. We have the Persian god of light, and now we have the Persian devil of mental darkness. Ara, Ahura-Mazda, that is a god of light, and then Angro-Mainyus, that's Angro-Mainyus, and that is the devil of mental darkness. Here, the odor boogie of the night has been found out. Men had dipped into the dark and suffered from the shadow of eclipse so long and passed through them so often and so safely that their essential unreality was discovered at last. Thus, Angro-Mainyus, the black mind, is only accredited with the creation of that is untrue, unreal, and utterly delusive in nature. Did y'all hear that? How many of y'all, by show of hands, don't worry, I can see you, how many of y'all have seen Lovecraft Country? How many of y'all have seen that? How many of y'all have known the works of, heard of the works of H.P. Lovecraft, who Lovecraft Country was based upon? H.P. Lovecraft. How many of y'all have read his, I want to call it a chapter or a book on the creation of niggers? Yeah. So you're going to learn today. H.P. Lovecraft made the way for every horror, every scary movie film producer, your Wes Cravens, your Stephen Kings, even Rob Zombie. Shout out to those. But H.P. Lovecraft was one of the first authors to put the horror into the minds of the people, Western civilization, you can well say. So let me read this again. Listen, because it's not a race presentation. This is a real presentation. Thus, Angro-Manius, the black mind is only accredited with the creation of all that is untrue, unreal, and utterly delusive in nature. Bobby Hemmett tried to tell y'all that you were advanced chaos beings. Your origins do not start from this planet. You come from the Great Mother, the dragon Tiamat, or Typhoon. And there's even more esoteric teachings to Tiamat and Typhoon. Some say they're the same. But we come from the Great Mother. Why do you think the mother is omitted from the Bible and religion? They say the first evil was in the form of female. Why do you think the black and brown race, it's not about race, it's about realism? Why do you think they are the most ones that have been tortured, that have been, I want you to listen to me closely now, that has racially have been dehumanized, have been defiled? Their race, the black ones, have fell from a greatness and they cannot remember, or they are now just remembering who they were. And when they fell, this planet was given in the hands of the children, the ones who bound you for over 400 years. But before you blame the children, you first have to remember why you fell and why you came to ignorance and forgot who you were. This goes deep and it goes dark. But you will find the light, but you gotta go to the darkness to get to the light. Same thing Christ did. The Christ thing in the Bible, that is. Let me end it up. The Angro-Manius, the black mind, is only accredited with the creation of all that is untrue, unreal, and utterly delusive in nature. The light has now become the enduring reality, and darkness was only its deluding shadow. They now recognize that the dark one is the physical, mental, or moral domain, was only negative and negational. The bright one, the good of light, the good mind, was a supreme being. The reality, therefore, the author of all that was finally real and eternally true. These are the two causes of the universe. It is said they were united from the beginning and therefore are called twins. And the Persian revelation contains the gnosis and explanation of the doctrine concerning these two spirits. Let me read that slowly again. We almost out of here. They now recognize that the dark one in the physical, mental, or moral domain was only negative and negational. Let me read that again. They now recognize that the dark one in the physical, mental, and moral domain was only negative and negational. The bright one, the God of light, the good mind, was a supreme being. The reality, therefore, the author of all that was finally real and eternally true. These are the two causes of the universe. It is said they were united from the beginning and therefore are called the twins. And the Persian revelation, quote unquote, contains the gnosis and explanation of the doctrine concerning these two spirits. Such was the natural origin of that doctrine of duality which is discussed nowadays as a metaphysical mystery, and as if it were a reality from the root of it, made known to the world by direct revelation. The origin of good and evil in the nature of man, considered as a being of flesh and spirit, as the phenomenon embodiment of two opposite principles, assumed to have a spontaneous or automatic tendency towards good on the part of the one which is supposed to originate in the spirit, and the other to originate in the flesh as a natural antagonist, is traceable to the most primitive interpretation of duality called good and evil in external phenomenon, which was continued in the mental and moral, and lastly in the psychotheistic phase of thought. In its latest stage, the doctrine is destructive of individual responsibility in man and of a personal unity in deity, or the operating intelligence. There was no revelation, no new point of departure in phenomenon, nothing added to nature or human knowledge in these later views of mythology into metaphysical, philosophical, or theologian, in which the supposed revelation of newer truth was largely founded on a falsification of the old. We are not only contemporaries of savage men. Listen, we are not only contemporary of savage men and many of our current customs and benighting beliefs, we are also the victims of his leaving various of our superstitious being, the primitive fetishism that still survives in the large stage of perversion. But now for development of a devil. In Egypt, the old devil or darkness, as Sut Typhoon or Sivith, the crocodile head divinity, acquired a soul in the stars and a place in heaven. As Plutarch says, to him was given a crocodile or dragon constellation in the plain spear, whose casting out of heaven is described in the book of Revelation, and in the Persian Bahan, Yasht, where Sut or Seven, the dragon, that old serpent, is identified as Satan, the eternal adversary of souls, just as it is in the Egyptian ritual of the dead. Thus the devil first rose up in revolt as the natural darkness, called the dragon of the deep, the rebel against the light god, was gradually transformed into and supposed starry or spiritual beings, the vice dual of the dark, who in the Christian scheme is still considered to be the supreme power of the two. Or if their dominions be equally divided, he is supreme below and the light god above, just as it had been from the beginning. And finally, our theology has made the primal shadow of physical phenomena sustainable in the mental sphere, and from the eternal darkness of the beginning extracted and internalized the modern devil in the end. And I'm going to stop right there. I hope you enjoyed this presentation, The Christian Devil and the Origin of the Black Race. I am far from done. We are in the age of Aquarius. You are the Christ. Wake up to your power. Know who you are. We got higher realms to reach, people, and we're going to do it too. Peace and love. Hit the like button. You want to show some love? Hit the Cash App. $DarusCorbin. Once again, you want to show some love for the channel? Cash App $DarusCorbin. Appreciate the love. I'm out. Peace.